Okay, so like I thought, this is actually an intake. So what they really did when they snorkeled this was they hooked the belt exhaust into the belt intake. So I don't know how this thing had any cooling. Oh man. So yeah, the RMAX is supposed to have two intakes and one big exhaust. Intake, intake, exhaust. And that's not how it was snorkeled. This T here, I'm at an absolute loss for words. So these things are hard to snorkel, but this is next level. So we're gonna play with this a little bit and try to see. I don't know what happened here because it looks like this is a snorkel kit. Maybe this is like a depth finder like Super ATV and this is Warrior. So maybe they combined two snorkel kits and got confused. But yeah, this is something else. All right, so I'm gonna try not to roast whoever did this too hard. Snorkels can be confusing, especially on something like a Yamaha where you just have pipes everywhere. Obviously, the biggest issue here is that they had the exhaust snorkel routed into the intake in such a way that there was no, exchange of cool air. These CVTs need a lot of flow. So the reason you have these big snorkels on these CVTs is because the belt generates a lot of waste heat. That waste heat must be removed or it will cause the belt to fail. That's just all there is to it. Machines that have reliable belt drives have big coolant piping and good fans. Machines that have unreliable belt drives have small piping, like old Polaris's and old Can-Ams, for instance. You blew belts all the time. They overheated. Terrible, terrible flow. It's important when you snorkel, especially a belt drive side-by-side, that you match the factory diameter of the belt piping and keep the belt piping as short as possible. That's just kind of the simple part of flow dynamics. You don't want to lose a bunch of flow by using small pipes that are excessively long. So we're going to fix this eventually, but we got it going for today, and it did awesome after we fixed it. All right, so Richard bought an RMAX, and I brought the smoke tester out to smoke test it before we went deep with it, because it's got a crazy snorkel system on it, because these things are really tricky to snorkel. So we'll start up front, because that's the easiest stuff to explain. So here's the air box, very similar to the Wolverine 850 I have. What they opted here is they have a reducer to a 2-inch pipe, goes up the cage there, which it's okay, lose some flow, but to make up for that, they added another pipe here. So, you got pretty good engine flow because they added the second pipe into the air box. If you remember on my Wolverine 850, I just have a pipe sticking out of the hood here, like a stack going straight into here. That also worked well. So the engine intake, I'm pretty confident is good. The problem is the belt intake. So they got two pipes here. When we tested it, this is the intake. It felt like this thing didn't have any exhaust blowing out of it. So I was like, what the heck's going on here? Let's start pulling some stuff apart. So we pulled off the engine cowl and the seats so we can kind of see what's going on. And I'm not sure if it's how the snorkel kit's designed or not, but they got some wonky stuff here. So that is the belt intake. It's a 3-inch. They've got it reduced down to a 2-inch. Then it comes into 2 elbows and goes up like this. So the belt intake, fairly simple. I don't love the bends. This pipe isn't big enough for driving it hard, like wide open throttle and sand or anything, but it is getting some intake flow. The belt exhaust under here, however, is interesting. So you got a 3-inch right here, down to a 2-inch and an elbow into a rubber Y. A 4-inch down to a 3-inch down to a 2-inch. It comes out of here, comes up and goes back down immediately. And then it's supposed to come into the Y here. However, if you look through this hole right here, you can see the problem. The belt exhaust is not hooked up. So now we're going to try to find a way to get this thing sealed up so we can go a little deep with it today. I don't know. So the reason I don't own one of these is because they're really hard to snorkel, right? There's not enough space back here to raise up the factory pipes. From the factory, your belt intake is this giant pipe going forward. And I thought you had 2 intakes on these. It's been a while since I worked on the snorkels on one. And then your belt exhaust runs up the back and kind of dumps like this into this tray and blows on the exhaust system. So the belt exhaust cools your engine exhaust. So all that factory piping is gutted, and what was really big 3.5-inch factory piping has been replaced with 2-inch piping. So no matter what, we're not going to have the factory flow, but maybe we can get a little bit of flow and have it somewhat waterproof. But yeah, definitely probably the most pain in the ass machine to snorkel properly without just cutting giant holes in the bed and having some big 3-inch pipes in the bed, which is probably what I would do if it was mine. All right, so I finally got this contraption removed. I was trying to undo the joints and I realized if I just yanked on it, it all would fall apart because they didn't glue any of the connections with the proper glue. Also, all these pipes are kind of melted because there wasn't proper flow, so everything was getting super hot. So yeah, this is an example of where they had the intake right here, and they had the belt exhaust right here. So yeah, we're gonna try to do something here. Richard's got a big box of spare snorkel parts. We're gonna get something going, something better than that. Because yeah, it was just the exhaust was coming right out of here and it was getting pulled right into the intake, so it was just like a closed loop of just infinite heat. And then you had a little bit of cool air coming in here. So this thing's a testament to Yamaha that it still moves, because this belt was getting hot. All right, so we deleted that monstrosity, and I took the belt intake here, ran it straight out up here, comes through, and then I hooked it up to what they had as the exhaust. So now you got one intake here, 2-inch. You got one intake here, 2-inch. So these are both intakes. And then the big ass belt exhaust, I just stuck a U in it, so it kind of goes to the factory location. So we can't go any deeper than this right now. But what we could do, if we were really motivated, is cut a hole in the bed and have the belt exhaust come up through the bed. I think that's probably how we're gonna end up snorkeling this eventually. We don't have enough 3-inch pipe to do that right now, but that's gonna be the plan, I think, is two 2-inch belt intakes like we got here, and then one monster belt exhaust through the bed. That's how we're going to try to get Richard rolling. But now, at least the way we got it set up, it's going to have some good belt flow. This was getting so hot that it was melting everything. I mean, none of this is round anymore. Look at that. And just a warning for you guys, I know you think you're probably getting a great product when you buy this $500 belt drive snorkel kit from X manufacturer. Almost all these manufacturers do a shitty job maintaining factory flow, especially on the RMAX. The best thing to do is buy the OEM snorkels if they're available. If you're going to snorkel a Defender, buy the Can-Am snorkel kit. It's maybe a couple $100 more, but it has factory flow and you'll have a more reliable belt drive and it'll be quieter.